Okay, here we go again. This is one from Chester 555 again. Strangely, maybe because I went to see that video, this showed up in my sidebar just today. But it's interesting here. The title of it is so-called ancient, so he misses the T again. I think that's 5 or 6 times he's done that, so I don't think he knows how to spell ancient, because black people don't pronounce the last letters a lot of the time. Egyptian spelled with 2 capitals, and then it goes on. DNA test, Afrocentric response, part 1. So what drew me to this is just the fact that it showed that it's his response towards the DNA test that came out of Abu Sir el Melek, which actually proves that the Egyptians were always a perpetual Caucasian race. And though it showed a tiny amount of Negroid admix into them, it was much less than what came later in the Roman periods, and that's even much less than current Arabs have now from the slave trade that happened, and they even mentioned that. So I saw that and saw Chester 555, and I went, oh, I'm going to click on it. And sadly, guys, it's going to be looking like you're looking at the Dark Side of the Moon record for the first half of it. And the second half of it, he actually shows the paper that he reads to you in the first half. So doesn't quite have his skills together at all. But then again, I'm not that great either with something off at an angle and crap like that, or you can't see the first letters. But I usually try to read it to you regardless. And I wish I could do a whole lot more pictures, and a big collage while I'm talking and all kinds of stuff. But I like it better raw. Hey, it's my style. So I got on this thing and I found out that there's a few people responding, and then, oh my God, there's Golden Glove, and he's one of my regulars, and then there's 7 Phoenician 7. Oh wow, yeah, she put something on this. So what's she got to say about this? Well, she tells us that Afrocentrism is a gutter racist ideology. Now, I just want to preset the facts of this up before we listen to the black people, so you can see them hem and haw around and try to come up with any way they can try to refute it in any way. That's what they try to do. Usually, now, if a person came out and did this, they would try to refute persons. Like, say, like when I did a video and I read this word for word, they started trying to attack me directly, saying that I didn't know and all this stuff, which was hilarious because I'm reading what these industrial giants of genetics are saying to us, and they don't realize that, or if they do, they still think that this stupid little debunk will try to get rid of him because it tries to discredit him. Then, whenever that doesn't work, a lot of times, sometimes, they will troll me for video, trying to pick apart any little thing I said in each of my videos, or go back and look at old ones and try to go through them and try to find one thing they think is wrong. Which is sad for them, because then I come back on and debunk them again and again and again. And they don't like it. So then they start calling me Snow Cave Ape or some derogatory racist crap. And hey, well, what else could you expect out of black people? But so this right here shows, I don't know if I should read the whole thing to you or not. It's gonna lengthen it by far, but let's see if I can paraphrase it a little bit. Given limited data of the fact that U5, that is the dominant mitochondrial haplogroup found in hunter-gatherers in Europe, the recovery of haplogroup U5B2B5 sequence from the mummy of Jehadnacht, so this is Jehudi, so like Thoth, right? And Nacht, I think, means night, so this is Thoth's night. So, God, that's a cool name. That's like, yeah, and his wife is the goddess Shashank of Pot, right? And so what's cool about that is that, so this is, he's got a pretty cool name. It's almost like they had hippie names if you figured some of them out. Anyhow, the observed U5 lineage in the mummies that they talked about could potentially reflect interactions between Egypt and Near East and date as far back as the pre-dynastic or even early periods. So they're showing in their genetics, they're like, man, these people got a lot from the people out in the Anatolia and these Proto-Indo-European farmer genetics. Well, even after this point, it's been deduced by about 5 other papers correlating together that the genomes of the Badarians and the people that make that up, and then the people that are right out and what you would call later turn into an area called Canaanites and Phoenicians, and the people that were there, the Natufians, also have a high blend of European hunter-gatherers too, and it bleeds into it. And it has to do with like Göbekli Tepe and Catalhoyuk and all that stuff, and Proto-Indo-European Aryans, and back and forth through that whole area. And I've done a lot of videos about how Britain changed over time and things like that, but it was always Caucasians, and it wasn't like anything that blacks try to portray in any way, shape, or form, for they try to claim anything but being sub-Saharan primitives. And that's what I want you to understand as you see them try to deny this. Now, when they're telling you that this U5 is showing up at this early date, and they show ceramic imports and all this other thing, right? Cedar wood of Lebanon and everything. Well, they ran out of trees and they had to do that. So they're establishing the fact that maybe through the trade that they had this, but this is so far back that they're saying, no, the pre-dynastic, like this had to be going on for a long time, and they're never indicating that he has any Negroid DNA whatsoever. And this is just a separate one from the Absu-Ermelech, so it kind of shows something, and it shows European, Western hunter-gatherers, genetics inside the earliest dynasties of Egypt. And that's quite revealing whenever there's no Negroid DNA showing up to be spoken of. And of course, the West African primitives of America, recent descendants that didn't know the Bible or Egypt existed at all, are the ones that keep yapping this stuff. So hilariously, if anything was ever found out, they would still be left as the most primitive people that didn't do anything on the planet. And so it's a waste of time and worthless, but they desperately try this to somehow defray from the idea that they didn't do anything really of cultural value for the humanity in the world. So they really try to grip at Egypt. The problem is that it's Caucasian society, and it was all along. And although there were Nubians that weren't allowed even in there, and so and da-da-da, and oh, there was one that admixed in, great, you're not even related to Nubians or Khoisan or anything. So it's all just a big pathetic gripping at lies that they do. But so they do talk about this, though, also, that the individual with the MDTNA sequence, most similar to Yahat, comes from a Lebanese individual, in the fact of the 114 mtDTNA sequences now available from Northern African ancient human remains. Only one belongs to an African lineage, L3, observed in a skeleton from Absu-Ermelech. So we are talking about that area. And oh my God, so blacks are, oh my, so they found one out of all of them, and now we was kings? Do you see how pathetic that is? But sadly, L3 doesn't mean a Negroid. Sadly, North African Caucasians. And so when they say African, they meant that. Oh yeah, they meant that, like Libyans and these things, like they just mentioned up above, where he matches this Libyan Caucasian. Oh yeah, and that all the other haplogroups and sequences go with places not in Africa at all, like Egypt is, but out through into the Levant and Anatolia and Western European early farmers, and earlier than that, the Western hunter-gatherers too. There's a mix that they see from those genetics. Now, what they were trying to do whenever they got this Absu-Ermelech, because it's right in the center, and so it shows a spread of time, since before Hyksos all the way to the end, people were getting buried at this one necropolis area. And so they took ones they could identify from all the way the earliest and all the way latest, thinking that the earlier they go, the less DNA they may be able to get. But they had 130 or something like that, but some of them were really unviable, and they got 114 MDT genomes. And of course, everybody says, oh no, they only got 3 of them. No, they got 3 of the exact full DNA to a T marker. Intact, the whole thing, not just mDNA or other haplogroup things that they could identify and so on. Supposedly 93 of them, I think that's the number, are fully able to be sequenced enough and have haplogroups and everything that identified with them at all. But it's just missing little parts of sequences, and oh gee. But what they were trying to see was the slow and quick changes of genetics for when there was influx, when there might have been some Nubian influx into them, and then later a Persian or Akkadian, and then here comes that Greek DNA, and then wow, here's the Romans. And because they have some examples of that, they would be able to go, okay, here's them coming in, here apparently they're starting to mix with so and so. Yep, here's a later date where they even have more of it. Almost all of them have it now at a later date and things like this, but then they could glean information out of sequences like that. The problem with the paper was it said they didn't really change and they were always Caucasians. They had very little, if any, to mention Negroid admix until very, very late in it, and all their DNA shows up to be, Caucasians from like Anatolia and early European farmers and hunter-gatherers. Yeah, so that kind of shoots the foot right in it. It definitely does. But they try to pick on that one, like, ooh, wheeze. And that's like, no man, oh my gosh. If there was one, does that mean wheeze? And if there was one Nubian admixed person that they found, would that mean that West African primitives all of a sudden were a part of Egypt? This is the logic that escapes them just right off the bat as they attempt this. And so it would mean nothing to what the world thinks of West African primitives and the people of the slave trade in any way, shape, or form. And so it was a lost cause before it began, but it's only a racist, hateful cause that's trying desperately to get people to believe that the Africans, sub-Saharan Negroids of the slave trade that didn't even know Egypt existed and aren't part of the Bible or anything, were somehow part of the Bible, and we was Egyptians. And it's past disgusting. For all it is a racist geared motive they have going on. And people comment a few times. She usually doesn't comment, but maybe 1, 2, 3 times. She made her point. And listen, just like I do, but they try to act like they don't see it. If that point is made, the rest is mute. If I say something as simple as West African primitives didn't even know Egypt existed, then to speak further past that point is moot. There is really nothing to talk about unless you want to try to give me something, don't just go caveman, and stupid stuff. But that's what you get out of these people. And so they started talking about Afrocentricity, and it was and somebody said that it was fantastic and it wasn't a weird twist on trying to do history. And then she goes, no, here's what they even said themselves. Function of Afrocentricity. During the 2011-2012 school year, Dillard University offered an Afrocentric curriculum for the purpose of shaping students' awareness towards social justice. So the key word there is social justice and not necessarily truth. Now, is it? Well, so let's get into what's said here.
Let me go to this. Ancient Egyptian mummy genes suggest
Ancient Egyptian mummy genes. Let me turn this way up, and it's going to be hard to understand him because he's got bad grammar, Ebonic speak, and you can tell he's pushing a 85 IQ. And I apologize again.
Increase of sub-Saharan African ancestry in post-Roman periods. The title is very suggestive. So if the DNA suggests increased sub-Saharan African ancestry in post-Roman periods, what the hell was the DNA before the increase in sub-Saharan African
Well, it was Caucasian. In fact, if you could just glean logic out of it right there, that it was always Caucasian and still Caucasian dominant, highly dominant. Look at the amounts they give you all the way through the entire look that they're looking at, and the admix only shows up later. Now, you can either go with Mongolian, Denisovan from India, Amerindian, or Eskimo, or Caucasian. And since they're surrounded by Caucasians, one would, Libyans and North Africa was always Caucasians, and right there in the Delta and the Levant and everything. So what would it be there? The possibility, I'm just asking you because really, seriously, everybody else already knew. And it's kind of surprising that they had as much admix as they did until the slave trade comes in. He mentions that too. Let's go on.
See how they get you? See how these scientists do that?
See how the blacks get you? See how they say D-dat, and they think it all goes away? That's odd. Yes. Usually they're attacking a solo person instead of the information. Erie's going to D-dat it to death. Let's listen carefully.
Right? So no, we don't just because you're scientists, we with all that. That ain't the truth, man. We process information. Let me put this.
You process information. Yeah, sounds like you do real well. Sounds like you've got a Negroid filter on your head, and whenever somebody says that, bam, there weren't no Negroes and their admix shows up much later, you're going to Negro filter it and say, they is blacks. Don't know how anybody could make that logic leap level, but blacks have to be able to make that logic leap level. And then, again, sadly, I mentioned for the fourth time, West African primitives didn't even know Egypt existed, but they were the one really touting it, as if some black people somewhere did something. And that's not true either, and they're not part of the Bible. But you can see the wonderful logic of this man. He is such a scholar. And people tout this like crazy. They say people like this is smarts. And just like that last guy that put out that hero for me to debunk, he's the hero. No one could debunk Lex Will. And so I just grabbed the first one, and it was BS saying that blacks that get vitiligo one time killed Cain, and it's the mark of Cain. And then he tries to equate Negroids into the Bible and stuff and everything, and that just easily debunked. I could go with a lot of other ones. I was happy to do something other than Egyptians over and over again, showing blue-eyed statues and stuff and all the pale women and everything, and maybe the quote where they don't even allow Negroids into Egypt by decree, and they've got a bounty out for them, which is just the right hand. It's not the head or even their body. They don't want it. They just chop off the right hand, and they pay you more for them dead in just a right hand than they would alive, and they profess that they don't want vile Nubian troglodytes. But let's go.
It's in the chat room here, so y'all can read this. Read it. It's a pretty good read.
He says that, but it doesn't show up for much later. I may skip through this, but I just want to catch and see if there's anything yacky mouth that he says that's hilarious and easily debunked.
You see, all right. And you read it, right, Joe?
Joe?
Yep. Oh, you read it?
He's trying to put it up, but he can't.
What side?
Yeah. And
again, he messes up.
Continue to read it because I got to read the supplemental material.
You can tell that man isn't related to the Egyptians.
Too.
That's real.
So that's in a minute.
Yeah. The email correspondence, all the extra shit. Let me see something right here. Let me see.
Hold on.
Hold on. I'm gonna read this right here.
Hee-haw.
Damn. What was the word? What was the word? Oh, okay. Hold on.
Negroid. That's the word.
Shit.
While you do that, I can read the abstract. It's like just a short paragraph.
All right, go ahead and read the abstract real quick. Let me put my 2 cents in.
All right, I'm gonna read the abstract so people will know. You already put the link in the chat, so people follow. Okay, so the abstract says, Egypt, located on the Isthmus of Africa, is an ideal region to study historical population dynamics due to its geographical location and documented interactions with ancient civilizations in Africa, Asia, and Europe, particularly In the first millennium BCE, Egypt endured foreign domination, leading to growing numbers of foreigners living within its borders, possibly contributing genetically to the local population.
Yep. Now, what that tells you is what I was trying to tell you, because there's this other preface situation that tells you what they were trying to do and what they thought they might glean. And being the crossroads there of a lot of people and back influxes going into Egypt and North Africa of Caucasians, of course, they wanted to see how that float and changed, and whether or not Egypt did have any float and boundary that changed. And of course, after they did eventually getting taken over and then took back over themselves and so on back and forth, if that had a big change through it. Notice that he mentions Africa and stuff, but they really didn't say North Africa, but what they never said was sub-Saharan Negroids. But let's continue.
Here we present 90 mitochondrial genomes as well as genome-wide data sets from 3 individuals obtained from Egyptian mummies.
Now they say, oh, it's only 3, and no, over 90 people they have the full DNA out of, enough to be able to tell what's going on and everything about it, but not the full-on sequence. But they got the full-on sequence out of 3. Like they could, with that, they could Jurassic Park and make that man again. But let's continue.
The samples recovered from Middle Egypt span around 1,300 years of ancient Egyptian history, from the New Kingdom to the Roman period. Our analyses reveal that ancient Egyptians share more ancestry with Near Easterners than present-day Egyptians, who received additional sub-Saharan admixture in more recent times.
Now that's just it telling you right there that the people living there right now aren't the people that were there, and the people that were there ended up getting a bunch of Negroid admix later, but that has nothing to do with the ancient Egyptians, kind of slapping that idea really out the door.
Analysis establishes ancient Egyptian mummies as a genetic source to study ancient human history and offers the perspective of deciphering Egypt's past at a genome-wide level. So that concludes the abstract. So immediately, I think we have a couple of problems with that.
Immediately, blacks have a whole lot of problems they have to deal with, other than the fact that just the Egyptians were Caucasians, and blacks weren't even allowed into Egypt by decree, like the Semne Stele of Senusret III and many others. But they aren't even related to Nubians whatsoever or Khoisan, but yet, yeah, they got a problem. And it seems to be a mental one where they desperately do this and they all grip on it like, come on, let's go with a lie. What else could we lie about? And a lot of times you can distinctly tell they know they're caught up in a lie and won't quit.
So I don't know if we want to kind of just point that out.
Let me
wrong picture again.
I'm gonna move down a little bit in the paper real fast.
I'm gonna pick
and
up
for all they have to say, we're gonna get into the discussion. Right? They're gonna tell you what they really have and what they really don't have. Okay?
Yeah.
And for me, they talk about, we go down to, I don't know what section it is. That's the section with the genetics data, the file, what you call it, the phylogeny. Let me see.
Doesn't have a clue, but this is the type of person that blacks listen to. They want to hear what somebody with this type of IQ and intellect could possibly tell them, and not the science. In fact, when the science comes out and says, nah, no Negroids, they want somebody else to reread over that and try to put it through a black filter and lie to them and make them feel better again.
If you go to the discussion of the paper, where they actually discuss it, right?
Yeah.
So we got the discussion part of the paper, right?
Dissertation, which part?
You have the abstract intro, the results, and going further down, we have.
Can't read that word.
Okay.
Can't read that word.
Discussion. And I gotta find a daggone follow
dissertation.
The shit. But let me read this right here. And it's talking about. It said the trans-Saharan slave trade may have been particularly important as it moved between 6 to 7 million sub-Saharan Africans to North Africa over a span of 1,250 years. Okay.
And blacks wanted to totally dismiss that in America. where they want to also not remember the Islamic slave trade that happened 900 years before the Americas were even found, and nothing about that. And no. In fact, they want to be Islamic because there's a lot of blacks that are Islamic because they were taken under. Kind of like in America, where there's a lot of them that worship the Caucasian Bible, but you wouldn't believe how they blaspheme the image of God. And then I believe quite a few black churches actually are a pulpit for racism and lies. But that's probably another topic entirely.
It's a reaching its height, its high point in the 19th century. Then they hit you with the, however, we note that all our genetic data were obtained from a single site in Middle Egypt.
Negro thinks he has a loophole. What's sad is that he's going to try to dismiss the sentence he just read before that, where it tells you that Negroids didn't show up till the late trans-Saharan slave trade and the Islamic slave trade. And it went on for a long time in that area with the Arabics, and that's what they're adding it to, and it really isn't referring to their paper in any way, shape, or form. But he's going to dismiss that, and then here they do give one concession. They say, we didn't do it from 15 different sites all over Egypt and everything. What we did was we took a central, not a delta, not far northern, southern tip. No, we took the center one that people know, people have been buried into since the Middle Kingdom, through into the New Kingdom, all the way to the end. So pre-Hyksos, and this is a great opportunity for them to see raw Egyptians rather than just the Badarians and stuff like that, and then all the artifacts that show crystal blue eyes and everything, but to actually show them change over time. The paper notes that they really didn't, that they didn't intergress with anybody, much less Negroids, which what they really desperately want. Tell me somebody got admixed. Tell me somebody made a mistake. Let's continue.
Right? And may not be representative for all of ancient Egypt. It is possible that populations in the south of Egypt were more closely related to those of Nubia and had a higher sub-Saharan genetic component, in which case the argument for an influx of sub-Saharan ancestries after the Roman period might only be partially valid.
Right, so they'd have to do other checks. So this would be a squashed grape of nothing. But what they're saying validly right here is that no, Egyptians are Caucasians and they don't really have any Negroid admix. But if we checked up south, you might see some admix of it in there. And then therefore, it would say that some people up there admixed, but all the rest of them, and what we know of as the Egyptians all the way through, were also still Caucasians. And they hate the fact of truth. And so you can almost hear him hopping up and down, happy that it, even in itself, says there might be a chance for a Negroid, but we're not seeing none here. And he goes, oh, see, might, we is king.
Partially valid. So their whole paper is on trying to validate, you know what I'm saying, the whole argument of the Egyptians being something other than African ancestry. But then they come here and admit that it's only partially valid. They say,
so their whole purpose is to try to invalidate this right now, is to try to invalidate this paper, which, as you can tell, if they took everybody in the room and their grandma, they wouldn't even have the IQ of one of the people that helped to write the paper. But I guess that's neither here nor there. And West African primitives didn't even know Egypt existed, but they hop up and down the fact that, it might mean that there could have been some admix from Nubians who aren't related to West African primitives, more in the south area, but they ain't the hell seeing it all the way through the genome, through the time, but they discount that idea. But in that same thing, blacks go, oh boy, and in that same way, everybody else goes, see, we told you, they're Caucasians, and now you're begging for admix of somebody you aren't even related to. How sad. Let's continue.
And have to be nuanced. It says throughout pharaonic history there was an intense interaction between Egyptian and Nubian, ranging from
Yeah, and it was always warlike. I've even done a video on it, which is really a copy of Super Egyptians, where it's a correlated thing that one of the ancient Egyptologists had correlated on all the things they said, and it wasn't just about Nubians, but he picked out the areas that were about Nubians, and it wasn't even all of them. And they call them vile Nubian troglodytes. It means primitive, unaware cave or hole dwellers, and they aren't allowed into Egypt and everything, and they sure as hell aren't part of it, and they aren't lollygagging around together. That there are places, like I said, the Semne Stele of Senjuret III, that says that they aren't even allowed into Egypt by decree, and all these things. One of the big things that Squat started out, you know, he's the troll that's been with me for 2 years now, I guess, and when he started out was Nubia was the best ally of Egypt through their entire dynasties, and it's like, dude, you have no clue. But then, let's see, him and a few other guys challenged me, and after calling me a cave ape and stuff, and told me they taught me how to bathe, and gave me a list of like 36 things that I had to basically debunk, or West African primitives were going to believe that they were the Caucasian Egyptians. And so I started to make the videos on. By the third or fourth one, Squats admitted openly in the video, and I did a video about it, that West African primitives didn't know Egypt existed, but yet he still believed that there was a black component in some slight admix somewhere, and that he felt like some of them looked like Beja type people, which is of course a late admix anyhow, and part of that influx that we just talked about. But being shown that 10 times over, he doesn't want to agree. It's hilarious. He made a video that stated ancient sub-Saharan African Negro ancestry. That was the name of it. And he starts out showing waterfalls and stuff, and part of that Real Histories of Negro thing that they came out with, and just a little clip of it. And then everything from then on is all showing Egyptians, and now he's going to try to claim Egyptians, which is not even in sub-Saharan Africa. It's hilarious, and it shows you that these people don't even want to mention the primitives and stuff and everything and where they really come from. In fact, so what's sub-Saharan African ancestry? Northeast African Caucasians. No, try again. We was the Hebrews. Definitely not even a part of the Bible, but try again. Well, at least we was the Moors. Oh, so you're saying that you were just primitives, and then once the slave trade happened, you were the Moors, but you were the slaves of the Moors. They castrated them as eunuchs, and you weren't the Moors. And I've done videos on the Moors too. That's one that was on the list, and it shows all these Caucasians. That's the reason Spain, which is the only place in Europe they really got to, doesn't look like Negroids in any way, shape, or form. Because they were very Caucasian at that time too, extremely. And Muhammad is a redhead, and so on. This look that they have nowadays is after they tainted their bloodline with Negroes from the slave trade. And we're about to end this one and go to the second one, but I'm gonna let it go. Where are we at? 33 minutes? Well, I might as well go for 45. They do in 15-minute increments, so.
Trade to conquest to colonization, and there is compelling evidence for ethnic complexity within households within Egyptian men marrying Nubian women and vice versa. Clip.
Yeah, so he's happy as hell now, boy, hopping up and down, and he said there's some, out of millions, there's some evidence that there may be Egyptian men, Caucasians, that says straightforward, and he's going to brush over that, had interbred with Nubian women, and now, oh boy, we as admix, we get mulattoed in. Well, they aren't real happy in America when they were mulattoed in, but regardless of that effect, that means for sure that the ancient Nubians, the founders and the runners of Egypt, are two totally different people, and that the Caucasian Egyptians or the pre-dynastic, dynastic, everything, Narmer, Menez, whatever you want to say, everything, no matter what. No, don't show me something that you can't even prove and that they never said was for sure him anyhow. That's disgusting. Please stay with the correct thing. All the Negrocentric little moments of yap yap and lies have all been debunked, sentence by sentence. Every single one of them. Every thought that Diop ever had, debunked long, long ago. Long before these idiots are hopping up and down trying to believe a lie. Let's continue. Watch, he's all excited.
Clearly, more genetic studies on ancient human remains from southern Egypt and Sudan are needed before apodic, what is this word? Apodic statements can be made.
Page you on again?
Can't even read the words, but he's going to try to make a statement about it. So now he's so excited. Now let me clear that point up right there with what he just said. Clearly they need to do a couple in Nubian area too during the time of then and see if they can see a total differentiation and where some admix could have happened to these people or not. But that the whole center part that they're in right now shows no. And of course the delta, no, because they're indicating all of this is a little less, but maybe way up the Nile where Nubia came in a couple of times and they actually went from being way up there and backed off, and Nubia kept coming in like hanging at the fence like mooches, and now they're hoping for a mooch leech admix somehow gave some Negroid something, but the person in this picture didn't even know Egypt existed. His parents and all the lineage all the way back didn't know it whatsoever. They were West African primitives. They didn't know the Nubians existed. And so regardless of if they got some Nubian in them a little bit, it wouldn't be West African primitives that are involved in Egypt, the Bible, or any of this in any way. So it's a moot point, but hop up and down happy.
I'm in the discussion section.
Discussion.
Oh, that's right. This is not a PDF, so.
A ponditic. That's like a conclusive statement. That word I'm saying wrong. Apodictic.
Apodic.
Ponditic. Did I say that right?
Try it again.
Anyway.
Yeah, it's hard to read those complex Caucasian words. In fact, all you're reading is Caucasian words and Caucasian science and stuff. There aren't any Negroids that have got into this field. It's hard to get one smart enough to be capable of doing it correctly. And whenever they do, they want to make sure they aren't going to sit and just lie like these people would do if they got in that position. They would just lie like crazy. And see how disgusting that is? Yeah, that's the reason the Caucasian scientists are in charge of it. Wait, no, they're in charge of it because they developed science from the very first of it, and then all the Greeks and Newton and everything else. And I don't know if you know or not, but we can fly now, and now we're spacemen. It's incredible, all the things we've done for humanity. Meanwhile, back at Negro camp, they are trying to just claim something the people they didn't even know existed and see if they can mooch off of that rather than be primitives. You can kind of see the scale tip real hard whenever you really look at it that way, huh?
Anyway, that statement, I know that word means like conclusive. Yeah.
You're right, Negro, but you can't even pronounce it. And you didn't even do conclusive very good. But because you said conclusius, and it's conclusive. And if you look that up, it's got a Latin derivative. And would you like me to break that apart linguistically? No. Okay.
I'm saying, and so basically what they're saying is, right, that they can't make conclusive statements. That word is like clearly established, right, or beyond dispute. So they write a whole daggone letter, right, in the journal of Nature, you know what I'm saying, based off of the fact, you know what I'm saying, that they can't make statements that can't be disputed.
No, no, Negro, don't try to twist it and make it something stupid. They're saying everybody from Middle Egypt, all the way from pre-Hyksos all the way through, and the Delta and everything, of course, didn't have any admix. Now, there may be some Nubian admix up from the southern area, but that may be able to be discounted too, and you can see whenever Nubia took over that area and the governor Egyptians that were in that area, maybe something happened. Maybe they didn't kill them in that crap. Maybe they raped their women and here we go or whatever. But one thing's for certain: Nubians will never be called Egyptians, hence the name. See, Nubia showed up after the first dynasties were already beginning in Egypt. It's well documented, and they killed them all off, and that was Nubian A colony. And they didn't show up for over 400 years again, or even spoke of whatsoever. And they showed up again, those demons, at the fence, mooching again, and that was Nubian C colony. And they can easily note a difference between the two as they do them. So this shows you that they aren't going to be able to ever correlate any Negroid whatsoever to Egyptians. Oh boy, they might have some admix. Oh boy, you have Caucasian admix in you, much higher than even at the end of their run in Roman times until these Arabic people have a little bit admix there. But yeah, 20 to 30% in Afro-Americans. And that does indicate that you do have a slight touch of Neanderthal from that Neanderthal caveman. Oh my God. And you know what? You might have a touch of Egyptian DNA too, but it wouldn't be from your side of the family. Now, would it?
I have it up on my screen. If you want to lock it on my screen, I have it where people can see
He
it.
finally put it up on the screen where it says it.
Yeah, however.
Oh, but however he screwed it up.
Oh, hold on. Let me lock the screen on that. Hold on. All right, let me lock it on that.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's the word, and it says, that trans-Saharan slave trade may be particularly important as it moved 6 to 7 million sub-Saharan slaves into North Africa, and they're talking about after the fact, and that's the reason that people see it today. And so clearly in that statement he's saying, don't take the people today and think that somehow that's the people that were here before, because we've already found out a long time ago there was blue crystallized statues and all this other stuff. Tell you what, I'm going to show you that real quick before we end at the 45 here, and then we'll go to part 2 on it and let them end cutting their throat and acting stupid. So I'm going the wrong way, and there's Herodotus. We can pull that up and see how he doesn't say anything about black skin and woolly hair, for he says dark skin and curly hair. But these is the eyes of an early Egyptian scribe from like the 4th or 5th dynasty, and there's quite a few of these crystal blue-eyed Caucasians that start off the earliest of dynasties, made from small rock crystal. Here's another view of that Caucasian with blue eyes staring at you. You want to look into the eyes of an ancient Egyptian, you're looking at it. They even did that effect to cats and stuff. But yeah, Horaha, and his changed blue to gray as you go around twisting, and people have noted and taken pictures, and they note you got to get in certain areas and it'll look blue, and it doesn't really show up on the camera as well as it does to your eyes, but if you get in this area, whoa. So yeah. And what else? Well, I had to actually just Google search image blue-eyed Egyptians, and it is pretty much just pat too, because it's not even just those, but it'll show you more of them. And so this is just a straight Google search on blue-eyed Egyptians. And so what we're seeing here is that guy we just looked at, but another one named Mitri. And even though most of it's scuffed off, you can see his skin here, and he's got a little mustache going on. But what about this one here that's even a lot more paler, and he's got a mullet going on and blue eyes, and All these other statues that have that crystal blue eye effect, all the way through Horaha, and there's those blue eyes. Yeah, you're not going to try this, are you, Negroes? Yeah, you're going to try it. Oh man, they hated it when Nefertiti's bust came out and it showed that it wasn't a Negro in any way, shape, or form. But lo and behold, she's got a blue crystal eye still left in that statue. The other one's gone, but that one's in there, and it was all the time. That's the way King Tut looks. It's sad that they try this type thing. Hey, there's no fret. Her and her husband sitting side by side, and you can clearly tell that's a tanned Caucasian and a very pale woman with blue eyes. That's a Caucasian edict that blacks couldn't try to mock like they try to mock other people's culture. They couldn't try to mock that even if they had to. Oh wait, now they can do the Michael Jackson bleaching that they are so famous for doing here. And oh yeah, they like to wear Caucasian mimicking hair hats instead of their nappy Bantu knots and picked out froze. That kind of went away. Yeah. Even contacts where they can try to color their eyes. But one thing's for sure, West African primitives will never be called Nubians, and Nubians will never be called the Egyptians, and the Egyptians are Caucasians. Let's go on to part 2 here, and we'll see you there. Up in the top left-hand corner. Peace.